I'm going to share my screen. It's so quiet. Okay, so this is going to be a class on how to make the command work with the Docusign and the Zipforms, and there are lots of different ways you can do this. I'm just going to teach you the way that I do it because I feel like it works really well. You can take a version of this and make it work for you too, and I'll kind of touch on some of those things. But the first thing that you'd want to do is go to Zipforms. If you are ready to write an offer or take a listing, you're going to go to Zipforms or ZipLogics. It's this ZipLogics.com. If you guys don't have that set up, let me know, because you have to have that prior to getting going. I think most of you, minus maybe Ryan, has not set that up yet. I think the rest of you have. I have also this task list that I just had shown in our Facebook group. So this will kind of help you with knowing what forms that you need for each type of transaction. Anything in yellow are like the base that you're always going to use for that type of transaction. The other ones they could be used. It really depends on the type of transaction, but it gives you kind of a feel for what you'll need. So if you're setting up templates, which we're going to do first, you would probably set your template up with mostly the yellow ones. So we'll go do that first, actually. Move this out of the way. You're going to log in. I intentionally didn't log in ahead of time just so you could see what that looked like, know where that login button is. I think that's actually the wrong login. I'll know in a second. Oh, nope, it wasn't. So when you first log into your Zipforms, it looks like this. Yours will be empty the first time you ever come into it. You won't have all these little boxes. For some reason, I have everyone else in the offices. I'm an admin account, I guess, so I end up with a million different boxes. They're not all mine. First thing you would do when you come in here, if you guys have any questions at any time, let me know. I don't always pay attention to that text box, so you might have to unmute yourself and say something. And sometimes I go a little fast, so let me know too if I need to slow down. But this is your dashboard. You have, again, all of your transactions that you have going currently. You can add a new one by clicking new. You can import, I never use that button, or export, delete, all of these different options. We're going to start up here. We have transactions. We're actually in the transaction room right now. Templates. So I'll click on template first. This should be the first thing that you do when you first come in. I set this up with you too on some of our first meetings that we have. You'll click new and then name it whatever you want it to be. Or sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Click either new listing or new purchase. If you're in commercial, you'll use these two, but pretend that it's a new listing. You would click that, you get a new box, enter the name. It can be anything that you want it to be. This is your Zipforms. It needs to make sense to you. So it could be, I think mine says 20, no, it says basic listing. It's in the background, but it might be basic residential listing or just residential listing, vacant land listing, whatever you're setting up as a template. It could be based off of this Oregon task list sheet that I gave you also. Make a few of them. The basic ones that you should always have are just a basic residential listing and a basic residential sale transaction in here. Those are the two most commonly used. So you'll name it whatever you want it to be. Again, hit the residential button or whatever it is down here. You don't have to change these auto apply unless you want to. I don't think it's a very good idea, because if you have it auto apply to every template, you're going to end up with things that you don't necessarily need. And then it will go to your templates, and down here, which you can't really see, well, I can't see it, that's because this is in the way, has the save button. Try to get this to go over here. So you click save. I'm not going to, because I would end up with another one, and it will pop in here. So I have the basic listing. I'm going to click on that and show you what it looks like. I ignore all of these, the party checklist, all of those. You can use them if you want to. eSign is great for property disclosures. I'm not going to probably teach you on that today, but just know that you can use that function to be able to send property disclosures, which are 7 pages long, full of a ton of questions for your seller to be able to actually digitally fill it out. That's something that you are not allowed to help anybody with filling out. So once you send it to them, a lot of times your sellers are going to say, hey, will you help me with this? Or you have an elderly one that doesn't want to check the boxes. We are legally not allowed to help them in any way, shape, or form with that form. They'll have to find somebody else who can check those boxes for them or answer those questions that they might have. So know that. You can send it from here. You can also, I usually just hand it to them and tell them to spend some time with it because there are so many questions. Might take a few days to get through depending on their time, and then get it picked up prior to getting an offer. So what you would do when you first come in here, over here on the right-hand side, this would be empty. These would not exist. So you'll come over here to all forms and you pick your forms. This box up here is a toggle. When you click on it, these are all the different forms that you're going to have available to you. If you've been with another office or another KW, you may not have access to all of these because you paid for your Zipforms outside of our office. But if you're new to our office, Heather will set you up with Zipforms, and then you will have the forms that you're using for each different type of, like we have KW forms. That would be the most common thing that you would not have if you paid for Zipforms outside of our office. I can send you those forms though. You will have Aura forms and you'll have RMLS automatically. If you're in Washington, you'll have the Washington. If you are part of WVMLS, which is like the Eugene area, Salem, that area, you pay separately for that MLS. That will show up. Same with any other MLS system that you're going to use. So you can toggle back and forth to get the different forms. So the first one that you would want is this cover sheet. Anything, so if you click on it, it will turn blue and the form pops in over here. So I've gone through, I've used this task list sheet over here to pick the forms that I need for a basic transaction. And click somewhere else on the page. You can see that I've imported the cover sheet, the residential sale agreement, disclose limited agency. You always need that for every single client that you ever have, whether or not you're in dual agency or not, they still need to fill out that or sign that form, or at least be presented with the form so that they understand what dual agency is and that they may be in it, especially if it's a listing. Some people won't sign it. So if they will not sign it, just write on it for me that they said that they won't sign it. They understand what it is, but they don't want to be in that situation. We need property disclosures, your addendum. So this is a basic residential sale, every form that I would need if I were writing an offer, and I would have gone into transactions and wait for the internet. There we go. And I would start up a transaction. So to start a transaction, once you have your template all set up, you would come over here to new, click on new, choose whether you're making a listing or a purchase. And again, if you're commercial, would be over here. What we're gonna do, let's do new listing actually. Enter the name. It's best if you use the property address over a name, but you can use both. The reason that you would want to have a property address over a name is you may be writing multiple offers for these people, especially in the market we're in right now. I've got one client, I think I've got 4 or 5 different offers, and you can't tell them apart if you don't have them by property address. So let's write in this one. When you write in the address, you can see that it's popping up here. So pick the right one because otherwise I would get an Iowa address. And it's going to import a little bit of information for you. The next step, pick your residential or whatever other type it might be. This MLS Connect number or button will help you hugely if you're writing a sale and it's already in RMLS. If you grab that button, and then you need to make sure that your MLS name is correct. Mine is defaulting to core for some reason. It should be defaulting to RMLS. I probably need to go fix that. Your MLS user ID is what you log into RMLS with. It's that user ID name. And your password for that, you definitely need those. And then the listing ID number, which would just be whatever the MLS number is. And then you would hit find, and let's just do that. It's not the correct one, but I want to do want to show you it. It pops in that information. It will import all of that information. Obviously, it's the wrong house for this one. I'm going to use it anyway because it doesn't matter. Click Use Listing, and it just imported a ton of information for you. You have active, agent. So down here, this is where you would select your template. come in here. I did skip a little part I'm gonna jump back to in just a second. This is where you can pick whatever type of thing you're doing. So this one is a residential. I'm gonna grab that residential 2020 and hit save. And it now just imported all of my forms into my transaction. This will save you so much time. Actually don't want to do that. Well, I'll just pick it. We're going to ignore a lot of this. I haven't had that box pop up before. Okay, so in the document section in the middle, all of those just popped in. For just a second, I'm going to jump back up to templates because I skipped a spot. So when you're setting these up, if you click on, we'll do this residential 2020 because that's where we're at. All of these forms are in here. The reason for this cover sheet, if you click on it and you fill this out in templates, just do your own, your own information, because that's what's going to go into every single deal that you do, not the other agent's information. It's being really slow. You would come down. My computer is being very slow. Scroll down to selling broker information, put all your information. The selling office ID and license number can be found in RMLS, same with this information for you. That will all autofill. And if you're in a transaction, same thing, you can fill this out in the transaction and then it will autofill. The forms all talk to each other. So if you are actually in a form and you add some information, it's going to import that to all of your forms. They're pretty intuitive. It's a nice thing about this system. So I'm going to jump back over to that transaction in a minute. Any questions so far? My gosh, it's being so slow. Okay, click on this one. Back to documents. If you filled this out, since I imported information into here too, so if you click on that cover sheet, oh my gosh, this is so slow. You can see that the selling broker information popped in. It actually kicked me out of it. So I need to redo that. That was probably that question it was asking. It won't know your buyer information. You're going to fill that out in here. But it did know the seller's information, the other agent's information. It fills out a ton of information. This section right here, a lot of the information is not in a purchase agreement, so don't worry about filling out every single answer in here. You have your listed price in here and your purchase price. This one you do want to change to be whatever they're offering. You can leave these blank too. You don't have to fill them out in this cover sheet. Back out, and then go in the residential sale. And you can see it filled it out also. What it doesn't do is check little boxes like this one. And for some reason, it's just because of the way I imported it. It should say my name, so ignore that. You do need to make your own sale agreement number. So you can click on it here. You can also do it on that cover sheet. It can be whatever you want it to be. It can be the MLS number. I oftentimes will do the buyer's last name and the date. So maybe this and today's date would be 10, I think it's the 28th, 2020, because then I'll remember the date that I wrote it, but it literally can be anything that you want it to be. Your first offer I'll help you with, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail in here. Just know that a lot of things don't autofill, so you always want to come back in your purchase agreement and look it over line by line. I've even had people be taught, and I think it's a great way to do it. I don't know that I would do it, but if you're clicked on the very first box up here on the top left and you just tab down, you're not going to miss any lines if you do that. So that's one option. So that's forms. We only have a certain amount of time for this class, so I'm going to kind of speed through it a little bit. Once you've written your offer, it's ready to go. It's sitting in here in Zipforms and ready. You're going to leave this where it is and come back over to command up here. It's agent.kw.com. This is our gigantic platform that covers everything. You'll be in this one. Come down. Well, first thing you need to do, actually, not skip that, is put a contact in. And that's the little person on the top left. your add contact button over here on the top right, the green button. Click on that. And you get a box that pops up. All you need for a contact is a name. And if you have a couple that are married, you still have to separate them. It's one at a time. You are going to connect them by relationship. So we'll put Morgan in here. And then you can add a relationship. So you know that you're going to have 2 contacts. This is going to speed up your adding contacts. Do that. And then if you click add, now you've just made them a relationship. They're connected. So when you go to write an offer, it's going to know that's the other seller. And then you would do your address, phone number, as much information as you want to put in here, you can. If they're an active lead, you can click that. Be careful with clicking active leads and tags because you really want to make sure you know the system well enough to know how you're going to look people up later. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back in there and change everybody. So get pretty fluent with this before you start doing that. There's an add more information where you can add lots of information. But if that looks good, you will click that green button that you can, well, I have this guy in the way down here. And that will make them a contact. I'm not going to make them a contact because I don't want to actually add them in there. But once you have a contact, you can either click on them. And these are all the things that you can do within a contact. You can see the timeline of all the things you've done. You have the opportunities button. That is where you're going to be writing the offer and putting the documents to send to me for review. You're going to spend a lot of time, so get really used to that opportunities button. There are a couple different ways to get into it. 1 through the contact, or 2 over here on the left-hand side, the hands. That's my favorite way of going into it. I'm going to show you that next, but I did want to show you this one. You can make smart plans. You can do all kinds of things within the contact. So I'm going to actually show you the other way in, the hands. Now you have all opportunities up here on the top, or you have create opportunity on the far right. And these sections in the background are showing you the deals that you have in the different areas. And so I'll show you when we're making the opportunity, there's a box for determining where they're going to fall in those areas. So I like to click this create opportunity button. Choose whether it's a listing or a buyer. That's pretty important. We'll pick buyer on this one. You are the owner, so I'll leave that one the way it is. Client, when you click on this box, nothing pops up. You have to start typing their name in. And then it will pop up where you can grab it. And then if you have made a relationship out of them, when you click on co-buyer, you will get the drop down. Let's try this one. Let's see if I'm his co-buyer. And then down here, opportunity name. This one is pretty important. You can leave it the Greg Hodson buyer or listing, whatever it says, as long as you add the property address in with it. I think it was Southeast. And it only has to be the street. You don't have to go too crazy with it if you don't want to. This is how we're going to search for it later to get it approved so that you can get paid. So that's why it's kind of important. You can also get rid of the first part if you want to just have the address. Totally up to you guys as long as the address is on there. You can tag it if you want to. Not that important. Depends on how you're going to use your system. Anything with an asterisk does need an answer though. So commission rate, this is the amount that you are actually going to make on this. So if you're on the listing side and it's a 5% listing, the odds are you're going to make 2.5% on that. Put that 2.5% in. Don't put the whole 5% in. This is what your commission is based off of that you're going to be making. You're probably going to have to come in and change it if you're going to double end it or something changes with that commission structure. Your opportunity phase, this is how it's falling in back here. So you can choose cultivate, it will pop in right here. Appointment will pop in right here. It really depends on where you're at. I'm going to grab active because it's an active sale. And then your opportunity stage, it's falling in underneath. So you're going to do whatever it is that you want to be on. Negotiations is probably the best one. And then the little green button. Now you have an opportunity. So we're in the details section right here. These are the boxes that talk about the transaction. You can edit them anytime you want to with this little pencil. Buyer profile, I don't use that area, so click on it, and you can use it if you want to, totally up to you. documents is where you're going to spend most of your time. This is where you're importing documents to send to me. It's like your folder. We used to have that manila folder that we used for our transactions. They were actual paper, and we had to take them into the reviewing broker and set it on their desk, and they would look through actual paper. This is all digital. First thing you do over here on the left-hand side is pick checklist type. This one is an Oregon residential purchase. We are dual license, so there's Oregon and Washington in here. So we'll pick that one. And once I did that, you can see these folders just popped up over here on the left-hand side. Consultation, if you want to put things in there, you totally can. It's an add item button. You're deciding what you want to put in there. Keep in mind, anything in these 3 folders on the left-hand side, not the custom folders, just these 3 are what you're sending to me for review. And you have 72 hours to get everything to me from the time it gets signed around, business hours. So if it's, don't worry about the weekend, but it is 72 or 3 business days for any form that ever gets signed should be coming to me according to Oregon law. So under contract, now you can see all these boxes popped up over here, or slots. These are like a holding slot for each document. Only one document at a time goes into it. Unless you have a run-on document, then that run-on document will fit in that entire slot. But it is one at a time. You can't select 3 different things. They won't all fit in here. If you're looking at these, the first one says purchase agreement. Underneath it, it says required. These are almost always required. The wire fraud says required. Not everybody will sign it, so I'm not going to hold your file up for not doing that one. Disclose limited agency, though, I do want that one. Even if they refuse to sign it, write on it that they refuse to sign it and stick it in here, because I will kick your file back for not having that page. That's one of our KW forms. Your pre-approval, all of these say required. As you scroll further down, you start to get into conditionally required, and it tells you why. You may not have a counter offer, or you might not have a blank addendum or repair addendums, things like that. But this is a pretty good guide for the forms that you're going to need for the transaction. And then as you get even further down, you get into things that are going to be even less required. If you have extra forms, you're going to have multiple repair addendums or multiple counteroffers or anything that's multiple, anything that is extra. You should be uploading your emails, things like that, anything that is pertaining to the transaction that if you were to, for some reason, get into litigation, it should be in here. If there's any question about whether or not you would need it, just put it in here. There's an add item button right here. If you click on it, you get this box where you get to name it, be whatever you want it to be. I'm not picky because it's actually falling in down at the bottom, and whatever you've labeled it, wherever you saved it, is actually what I'm seeing. But you have document type. So don't worry too much about this, not getting this right too. They don't give you a lot of options. So just do your best with picking whatever is closest. And then you have manual. You actually will have 3 of these dots eventually, and I'll show you when that happens. There'll be a 3rd one that says Docusign that you can pull from your Docusign folder. Because we haven't connected this to Docusign yet, it's not talking to Docusign, so that's not an option, but it will be in a minute. So you have a drag and drop feature. If you are, let me go in and actually download. This is my favorite feature. When you pull up a document and you download it from your computer and it pops in down here on the bottom, then you can come into your command and drag it in and drop it. Fastest way to put these documents in, my favorite feature. And then you would hit save. I'll actually put it in here. I didn't select a document type, so it won't let me. So you hit save, and it falls in at the bottom every time. You can see it down there on the bottom. So that's where all your extra forms are going to go. Another way of adding forms is this attach multiple files. Same thing, you would have a Docusign button here if we've been to Docusign, which we'll have in a minute. And you have all the different types of forms. It's just basically letting you put them all in those spots at the same time. So you can click on the drag and drop. You can pull from your computer, or if you're pulling from Docusign, it's going to be talking to that room where you can pull the form from there. And then the other option is the add a file button on the right side of each slot. You would, same thing, just pull that up, drag and drop your item in and assign it, and then it shows you what it's called right there. So if you have gotten it wrong, you grab the wrong document, click these three little dots on the far right side. You can remove it if you haven't sent it to me. You can print it. You can also replace it once you have sent it to me. So if I kick something back to you because it's missing something and you're going to replace it, this is how you're going to do it, is clicking those three little buttons. Click replace. So the first document doesn't go away, still stays there. I can look it up by version and see how many times something's been uploaded and changed, but you can't pull it out once it's been in there unless you haven't submitted it yet. Once you submit it, say these are in here, this button right here, very important to know about. Click submit to MC. It's going to ask you one more time, are you sure you want to send it? And you hit submit, and it's actually going to come to me for review. And it says over here on the left-hand side the stage that we're at. We're in submit. So I'm going to open another one up so you can see what it looks like on my end. When I come into review, probably down on the bottom. There it is. So this is when I come in and review your things throughout the transaction. It'll automatically bring me into documents. Eventually it will come in. So I will pull the document up, look it over. If it doesn't look good, I'm going to click reject on it, and I'll just leave a note. And now you can see if you hover over that little red bubble, it'll tell you why I've rejected it. If it's something that I think you're going to miss, I will add a comment in addition and tell you more about it and hit add reply. And then that message will show up over here and it will have a red dot for you. So if I come back over here to our other command and refresh, now I'm in the agent view again. I can see the bubble. For some reason, it is not giving me the red dot, but anyway, that's our message center. That's how we're going to be communicating back and forth. And then I can see why it got sent back. So that's some compliance. Any questions so far from anybody? I can't see if there are any messages because I'm screen sharing. So you'll have to unmute if you have any questions. So if not, we're going to move on to Docusign. Typically, this piece of it, the compliance piece, is done after you've written the offer and gotten it back or gotten it rejected, or in a lot of cases, agents are rejecting just by sending you an email saying, sorry, they didn't take your offer. You can put that into here. That's a great idea, actually, is to copy that or make a PDF of that email that you got that says it's rejected and throw it in here and then submit it to me. So then you have some documentation that it actually was seen and rejected. But in the meantime, if we are writing an offer, we would have gone into Zipforms like we did, wrote the entire offer, come over here, make a contact, make a an opportunity. That's what this is called. And then we would come in to start a transaction and go to Docusign. So now we have 3 tabs up here that we're working on. We have the command, again, your opportunity, the Docusign, and also the Zipforms. These are the 3 rooms that you're going to be in to write an offer or take a listing, do any of your paperwork. They all talk to each other, but they are all separate. And I guarantee you it is way faster to get through this after you've done it 1 or 2 times. It won't take this long to get through it. I actually have written an offer in a drive-through at a Burgerville before. That's how it gets so that it works together so fast that it's not going to take this long. So this is Docusign. If you've used Docusign before, it looks very similar, if not exact. First thing that I would do in writing an offer, come over to your people button. And this is you. This is the office. You're going to invite a person in by putting their email in. If you've used them before, it usually remembers who the person is. So you can click on them and it will autofill this. Say that they're on the buy side. The room role would be client. You can change their permissions if you want to and click invite. If you do invite, just keep in mind warn your people ahead of time because they will get an invitation that they've been added to a room and they think there are documents in it and there aren't yet because we haven't pulled any over and sent them over. So just warn them that, hey, I'm going to invite you to this room, but just ignore that first one. I'm not going to invite him because he would actually get an invitation and he doesn't know why he would get one. So that's the first thing I would do. If you're not ready to write the offer yet, though, you can wait on the people. That's not a necessary, you don't absolutely have to do that. It's just, once you've added them to the room, every time you sign papers from now throughout the rest of the transaction, they're already in there, so you can just attach their email, saves you time. I'm gonna jump back to documents. Over here, a couple different ways to add documents. If you have documents, maybe you're on the list side and you got that giant run-on document from the other agent with all of the documents in it, and you've downloaded it here or it's on your computer, you can drag and drop, and there it sits. Or you can go to add over here on the top right. You can pull from your computer or you can pull from Docusign forms. I don't recommend the Docusign forms because they're not all in there. They were supposed to be and they never finished that section. So I just avoid that. I use Zipforms. And then if you go through here, your newest transactions will pop up in here. If it's an old transaction and it was connected to another room, you may not see it in here. So you'd want to do that transaction right before you make this. So I'm just going to grab, I think it was this top one, and you have link or create or cancel. Create is going to actually create new forms that don't have any information on them. You may want to do that, but it's much easier to go into Zipforms first, fill out all those forms, and then come over here and link the transaction. And it will ask you again, now, do you want to pull from Zipforms library, which again is blank forms, or your linked transaction? I want to pull from the linked transaction. And there's all my forms that we filled out. So you can select all. We don't need the cover sheet, and unselect it. And you'll have all of these forms. You add them. You can remove the link right here too if you want to disconnect from it and start a new one. I had an agent call me this week, couldn't get it to read the transaction that he made, so he had to make a new one, but he had to disconnect and connect to the new one. You can do that at any point. So this is where all the forms are. Theoretically, I would come in here, pull those forms in. I know I need all of them signed, so I would select all, but you can do one at a time. And then once you've selected the forms, you can see these widgets popped up here. These are all the things that you can do those forms. You can download them from here, but if you're going to do that, keep in mind it's going to zip them and they're hard to unzip. So I think it's easier to do one at a time if you're downloading. But if you're getting things signed, this pen is Docusign. One of the forms it doesn't like. Once in a while, it doesn't like forms. There's some workarounds when that happens, which I'll touch on in a minute. So here's all the forms that we want to get signed. If you're questioning which ones got brought in, you can view them from here, make sure that they're looking okay. Down here underneath, though, you have the Add Recipient button. You click on that. You can do room participants. These are the people that you would have invited into the people section. So I'll click on that and you can see them. So if I'd actually added Greg on here, he would show up and I could just click him. All the information's already there. I'm going to grab myself, add selected. And then if you don't want to add them in there and it's just a one-time signing, or you don't want to confuse them with that initial message that they're going to get that they've been added to a room, you can click Add Recipient and add an email address in manually. Let's do her, actually. Well, they don't like that one. If you don't like what you put on here, you can also X them off. I'm going to, that one will work, I think. Okay, so you have all your people in here, you have all your forms, you're ready to move forward. Up here on the top right, click Next. And now you have all of your forms. And they're all on here anyway, they're in a run-on. And for when the person gets them to sign, they're in a run-on, but they are all separate also, which is really nice. If there are lots of options that you can do over here on the left-hand side to the forms. These are your people that are associated with being able to sign. So if you have somebody on here who's not actually signing a document, you won't get these back. You do want to undo that. Unless you have them checked as a receive only, make sure you've checked that correctly when you're making their permissions on it, because if you have everybody set up to sign, but one of them doesn't have to actually sign anything, the other two will sign it and it will sit in limbo forever. So keep that in mind if you can't find it. Both people have said, hey, I've signed it. That's probably what's holding it up. You can toggle back and forth. They're all color coded. So as you're scrolling through here and you want to add some signatures, let's go down to this one. We'll have this one. You click signature, come over here, and the line right here needs to be on that line. That's how you know that you've lined up correctly. You don't have to extend this. You can leave it the size that it is. It's going to fit it on that line correctly. Initials, you would, same thing, pull that over. If you grabbed an initial and you don't need an initial, you can come back and drop it back over here. Oops, or switch over. Or if you have put initials and you meant to put signature or something, as long as it's highlighted, if you hit delete, it will go away. Or if you decided, oh, I put this in the wrong spot, click on it, hit delete, it will go away. Really easy to use. If you're bringing multiple people over, so we'll drop this signature, make sure you put a date. Doesn't automatically date. You do have to drop the date. Switch over to your other person, drop that one, and a date. And say, like the purchase agreement, you're going to have, actually, let me get to that next. I'll show you. You can do text also. There's a text option down here. You would bring it over, make it big enough, type in whatever you want it to say. Do keep in mind when you put text on here, the people that get it, in this case, I'm on Greg, he can alter that if he wants to. So be careful with that one so that you're not putting something in like a commission amount or some amount that they can change on their end. We also have checkboxes. So click on the checkbox, you can bring it over, drop it wherever you want. You have to double click it. This is great for boxes that you're going to be checking for somebody else that they're going to be initialing. We also have the radio button. The radio button gives you an option. So there's usually 2, or you can make 3 if there are more than one option. So this is when your buyer is choosing between an option, they can only pick one. They click on it, they do have to double click on it. That is the thing that stops them. They'll click on it and keep saying, I click on it and nothing happens. They have to double click. If you have too many of these, you just delete it and they'll go away. So pretty intuitive, easy to use. I have to show you my favorite feature on the purchase agreement. Actually, I'll just do it on this one. So it's good to put this Oregon Real Estate Agency pamphlet in here and get it initialed. We'll drop initials on here. Actually do dates too. And there's multiple pages on this. So if I highlight, I bring this box over, and then I do, on a Mac, it's going to be Command V, or sorry, Command C for copy. You can also, I think, right click on a regular PC. On a PC, I think it's Control C, something like that. I don't work on a PC very often. So anyway, that's copy. So then you scroll to the next page and do Command V, and it drops it in the exact same spot as the previous page every time. We'll always put it in the top. You can move it around as long as it's highlighted. Yeah, I take that back. Now it's not going to let me. Well, now you can. And put it somewhere else. So if it didn't quite fit where you want it to be, that copy paste is going to save you so much time on this purchase agreement because it's 11 pages of initials down here. And once you've put them in where they are supposed to go, all pages are pretty much the same. So again, bring that box over, copy it, move to the next page, and it pastes and it puts it right in that same spot. It'll make it so much faster getting through here. So just go through it, make sure everything is the way you want it to be, page by page. When it's ready to go, you would hit send, and it will actually send it to them for signature, and it's ready to go. Any questions so far? Once you get it back, I'm gonna back out of this. I don't actually want to send this. And one more. In your regular Docusign, you will get notifications when they view it and when they sign it, which is really nice. Oops, it backed up too far. We're not far enough. Okay, so this is your regular Docusign. Envelopes is the envelope that you actually sent it out in. I'm gonna have to go back into it the other way. Oh no, it did let me do it. So if you send something out for signature, it will be sitting in here. This is just a draft, it hasn't been sent. If you sent it and the people have not gotten it, it might be that their email address is wrong, that there's some issue with it. If you come into here to envelopes and click on it, you can change it. Well, this is a little different because it's not sent, but you can resend it. You can change the email address in there that is not correct. I've done that before. Otherwise, it'll be sitting in here when it's signed. You'll have the sent version and you will have the signed version. The signed version has green button on it. Same thing over here in documents. You'll have all of the originals. They're sitting in here independent of each other. They will have, in some cases, this red PDF or the blue, but right next to it will be the same version, but the signed version, and it will have a little button on it that's green. That's the one that's signed. So once you get them back, you know you just need the residential purchase agreement. So click the little yellow or the little button that pops up when you hover over it. Each one gets one when you hover. So click that, do the download button, and it will download to your computer over here on the left-hand side. And then just you have to uncheck before you go to the next one. There are only certain things that you're going to send to another agent on a purchase, the residential sale agreement, the pre-approval you'll want to send over, wire fraud you might want to send over, but things that you're not going to send are this Oregon real estate agency, the multiple information you won't send, disclose limited agency. These are all just things for our office. COVID you will send if you're using it. An addendum you potentially are going to send over, so you may want to have downloaded just the ones that you're going to send over. Then you're going to go into your email and just, I'll put in my own actually. You can drag and drop here too, all of your files, and then you're ready to send it off to the other agent. So that is how those three work together. Do they make sense? You guys all feel like you could go out and write an offer? Hopefully. I am going to be there for you for your first offer, so don't let it scare you that I showed you this and then you're on your own. You're not on your own. You guys are all going to call me. Lester, I spent a few hours actually the other day on his very first offer doing this, and it takes a long time the first time you do it because you haven't done it before, and seems like I'm usually doing it through Zoom right now. We can do it in person too, but once you've done it 1 or 2 times, super fast to just go in here, fill out all those documents because you have templates for them, and then come back over to command, make a contact, make an opportunity, jump over to Docusign, pull the forms in, add the signatures, send them out. It's pretty much that easy. I know that doesn't probably sound super easy. I do want to show you in command, just switched over. When you get into your transaction or your opportunity, this is called, in the documents area, next to documents, once you're kind of toward the tail end. I did this with Caitlin today. She's getting toward the tail end of a transaction. So she just needs to close. But to get paid in our office, you have to do the offers button. You click on that. I'll walk you through this the first time you do it too. It's super simple. Click add new offer. You can leave this if you want to. You can name it whatever you want to. If you're on the listing side, you may have multiple offers. They may sale fail. But you'll click create offer and then just fill this out as it goes. It's just details about the offer. It's not an actual offer that you're adding in, it's just details. And once you have added an offer in, this commissions tab will pop up. So you can click on that and write in the details of what your commission is going to look like. And it will have your splits already taken out. If you are on a transaction that's in the middle of capping, it's not going to account for the difference in the cap in it. Heather does that on the back end. So you can send her a message within that and just say, hey, I know a cap in the middle of this. Or in the case of this is a family member or personal purchase where you don't have to do the 70-30 split on those. They're 100%. You still have the 6%. So that will come out of there. There's no way to take that 70-30 out. You just have to let Heather know and she'll fix it on the back end. Just send her an email. It's that simple. But I'll help you with all of that anyway on your first few offers or more, depending on how much help you need. I think that kind of covered everything. Timeline, I didn't really go over that, but if you click on that, if ever you get audited, especially if you were dual licensed in Washington, we get audited up there. We're due for one any day. They're going to come in here and look at the timeline, and it keeps track of everything that's ever done in here. Every time you do anything in here and every time I do something in here. So if you get into any kind of litigation, this is one of the things that they're going to come in here and look to make sure that you uploaded your documents on time and that I reviewed them on time, because not only do you have 72 hours to get these in to me, but I have 72 hours to look at them. So they want to make sure that we're being compliant. And I think that kind of got through this in 45 minutes. Any questions?
No, thank you, Chantel.
Review for the 72 hours that you're referring to. Can you hear
Was
me?
it helpful? Let me turn this up a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so, sorry, quick question. 72 hours. Is that 72 hours to complete it or just to review it?
Just to review it. So once you have filled something out and sent it over for signature, it's 72 hours to get it to me from the time it's signed around. If it's on a purchase agreement and your client signs it, when you're new, I'm going to see those before they even get sent to your person. But once you get going, you just have 72 hours from the point that it's signed. So if you send it off to an agent and they take more than 72 hours to even look at it or have their person respond to it, it's okay. Just wait till you get it back from them. You're more often than not probably going to get something back that is not officially rejected, but it timed out. That's okay too. Just when you get it back, put it into, I try to stick to the 72 hours because that's the law, but there's times when it goes over that. It's never good when it's right before or after closing that I get all the documents, because I can't correct anything. I can't get after anybody for not having documents all the way signed around. And then if something closes and it's not signed correctly, it's not good to go back to your client and say, hey, can you sign this? I missed it. We don't look very good when that happens to the state or our client. That makes sense.
Great, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? We were good?
No, thank you very much.
Good. Okay, now we just need to go out and write some offers. Take some listing. That's the easy part, kind of. Well, thanks for coming. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop into my office anytime. I think it's kind of been announced I'm going on vacation on Friday, but I'm still available. It's just going to be Zoom, not in person. So don't feel bad doesn't matter what time of day it is. Same thing applies. I'm just going down to visit family in California. So not really doing anything that I can't stop what I'm doing and help you.
Thank you, Chantel.
Thanks. Okay. Well, have a good week, everybody. And I guess I
Thank
will
you.
talk to everybody later.